Good morning. All right, so we're going to go over a few things that you're going to need to know to be able to do this assignment. So, workbook chapter 2, which I handed out to you guys last week, except for Reggie, but Reggie, you should be able to find it online or in Google Classroom. All right, so starting at the beginning, we're going to go over how do we fix these things, these notations. Okay, so in our text, right here, we have some instructions on how things should look. We went over this in the classes as a review. Um, so we have all the different parts. We've got the note heads, we've got the stems, the beams or flags. Okay. Um, Notice when the notes go up, it's on the right side. When they go down, it's on the left side. Okay, the flags are always on the right side, no matter if the stem is up or down. Okay, if we've got multiple eighth notes or 16th notes in a row, we're generally going to want to beam those. Remember, however many beams we have indicates whether it's an eighth note or a 16th note. Moving on. This is important as well because there's an exercise. Let me find it again. Sorry. Down here where you have to match. If it's a note, you got to put its rest value, or if it's a rest, you got to put its note value. So you need to be able to match those together. So this chart right here is going to show you that whole note, whole rest, half note, half rest, quarter note, quarter rest, eighth note, eighth rest, 16th, 16th rest. Okay. So that's very important to be able to know. And if you wanted to pause and screenshot, you can use that there. My face is in the way. Okay, there you go. Moving on. This one right here, identifying the meter. So we've got a series of notes and rhythms and bar lines, right? And it's asking what our meter is and what our meter type is. So the thing that I do first is between the lines, I'm going to count how many quarter notes there are. And then that's generally going to give me my answer unless something looks a little weird. And honestly, you can come up with more than one answer and it still be correct, as long as the math adds up. So this little example here is showing us kind of our meter signature, or remember I like to call it time signature. And so we've got 3. Remember, 3 is the how many and the 4 is the what. So 3 quarter notes. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3. See how that works? Here's a little chart that's going to help you guys with that. So meter signature, 2, 4, how many beats in a measure, 2, what gets the beat, a quarter note. So that gives us simple duple, okay? And just a little hint, this whole chapter is geared towards simple meters. So most likely all your answers are going to be simple. So it's a matter of whether it's duple, triple, quadruple, so on and so forth. So check out this chart right here, or this one. Remember, you can pause, screenshot, whatever. Here's another little, oh, I can't zoom in on that one. But down here, the summary just kind of gives you some more simple tuples, or 2-2, cut time, 2-4, 2-8, so on and so forth. Anything with a 2 on the top is going to give you the simple duple. Simple triple is anything with a 3 on top. Simple quadruple is anything with a 4 on top. Okay, for now. All right, so this section, counting rhythms. This is going to be found in our chapter on page, well, whatever page it is, I don't know. But it's going to be this section, okay? So, in reference to how do we break down the subdivision of the beats, okay? All right, so this is kind of the breakdown of how we're going to count this stuff. So, anything that's a quarter note, we're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, right? If they're eighth notes, they get counted 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. 16th notes, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and so on and so forth. When these get broken down, um, we still have to leave room for the notes that are not being represented. So the breakdown is 1 E and to fill up 4/16 notes. But like this one starts with an eighth note because the one beam, followed by 2/16 because of the two beams. So that second 16th note's worth of value is within this eighth note. So one, so the E is still in there. We just don't mark it because it doesn't get articulated. So then the next thing would be the and then the So just like right here, it shows one E and because the first two are sixteenths, the last is an eighth, so we don't show the Here we have 16th, eighth, so the next 16th is within that, and then 16th, so one E because the and is inside here. Okay. For some of you, this might be confusing. So just a little bit of practice may help you out on that. Um, if you need further explanation, I can break this down a little bit uh, in a different way. If you need to, just ask me. Some examples to show you kind of how that looks. And you notice if they put parentheses around something, that means that it's not articulated, but it's within the note that's being held. So like this half note, because it takes up 2 quarter notes worth of space, it's going to take up 2 plus the 3. So they put that in parentheses just so we know where that count is. It's just not going to be articulated. So here's some examples: 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1. Okay. Um, This being in 3/2, where the half note gets the beat, gets a little tricky because now we're not counting quarter notes as the beat, we're counting half notes as the beat. So we have 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1. Okay. You notice that they're exactly the same counts, just written differently. And then here's another example in 3/8. Um, we're gonna start simple though with things that are like in 3/4 so that they're a little bit more conducive to you guys understanding. And I think I'm gonna pull up the book example. Okay. Yeah, so your assignment here is everything is in like simple triple, simple quadruple, simple duple, so on and so forth. So there's nothing weird where you're having to count the notes differently other than straight up quarter note gets the beat. So they give you the first measure to go on, and then you just keep counting. Remember, we got our 16th notes. There's nothing too crazy to break that up. There are some in this example to show you, um, like 1 E and 2 kind of thing. Um, Same here with some. The other thing you have to do in here is you've got to add those bar lines. So for instance, we're in 3/4. So every 3 quarter notes worth of time, you have to add that bar line. So they added one here because we had 1, 2, 3, and we don't have a 4 because we're in 3. So we put a bar line so we can start back again at 1, 2, 3 E, and what comes after that would be the next one. So between that, we put another bar line. Okay, so just check your time signature there and add those bar lines as appropriate. Same thing goes here. The only thing we need to do here is add our bar lines. I want you to also add the counts, just like we did up here with the 1E ands and stuff like that, just to get more practice on it. Same on this one, bar lines and counts. Now, we get into assignment 2.2, and we have to understand what these dots mean. So if you have a dot to the right of the note, a little bit of math involved here. So what you're going to do is you're going to add, the dot adds half of the original value. So if a half note has a dot, you've got your half note plus half of that would be a quarter note. Okay, so this dotted half note becomes, instead of 2 beats, it's a half note plus a quarter note, so that equals 3 beats. Okay, so this quarter note has a dot, so your quarter note plus half of that, half of a quarter is what? An eighth note. Okay, so it's going to be a quarter plus an eighth, so it's going to be 1.5 beats. Okay, this chart also is showing us some things backwards. So what is an eighth note plus a 16th note? All right, I'll give you a little, I'm not going to give you half, see if you can figure it out, actually. Okay, so here's your little chart for dots and how they add up. And then another little example, you can have more than one dot. Remember, every dot adds half the value of what it's dotting. Okay, so for instance, if you have a double dot, the first dot adds half of this value, the second dot adds half of the dot. Okay, so there's your original quarter plus your first dot, which is the eighth note, plus your second dot because it's half of that, which is the 16th note. So you get a quarter plus an eighth plus a 16th, and that's its note value. Here's what it would look like in a piece of music. So you'd have a double dotted quarter note, which counts as your 1 plus your first eighth note of 2, and then your next 16th note of 2, so that leaves the left in 2 to 3, so it'd be 1, a 3. Okay, double dotted eighth notes, I see these more often than I see the double dotted quarter. Same deal. Okay, I don't see double dotted half notes very often, but that doesn't mean they don't show up in music. But this is probably the most common one, and then probably the next one, and this one's probably the least common to find in music. Okay, so this example, actually, let me back up here. So this one you're counting and adding bar lines, but it has included the dotted notes now. Okay, so you've got that extra element to add to it. This one here is a little bit different. So what they've done is they've left out a note, and you have to fill in where that arrow is one note to complete that measure. So here they had a dotted half note. We're in 4/4. They had a dotted half note, so that's 1, 2, 3 beats. And then this one was empty, so you had to fill it in to finish out that, which was a quarter note value to finish off 4. So here we have a dotted quarter note. 1, 2 is inside that. Then we have the and a 2, then 3. So then what would fill in that space? Another quarter note. Okay. Now this one's not so easy because we had a quarter note here and a quarter note there. They're not all going to be quarter notes. Okay, so you've got 1 and 2 and 3 dot on the quarter, which gives us 4, but not all of 4. So what would you fill up the space with? Okay, um, so kind of try this one out and see how you do. Some of them are a little tricky, but again, it is a little bit of math. You can reference your charts, and I would also recommend if you add your counts in, just like we were doing up in those previous exercises, that's going to help you to figure out what you need to finish off that measure. This one is an exercise in beaming, okay? Because one of the rules, and I don't know where it was in the book, is you want to beam within the beats. By the way, this, if it's the same pitch, is a tie, so it's just adding those values together. So this and this are exactly the same rhythm, but this is a preferred way of writing it versus this because um, this shows us our beats more clearly. We are looking at beamings. Okay, so this is showing us like when do we have our stems up, when we're down, what happens if we're crossing over, things like that, and we're still beaming together. Do we go up? Do we go down? So the general rule is, and we've been over this a little bit, um, anything below the middle line, stems go up. Anything above the middle line, stems go down. The middle line can go either way. Um, if you're beaming notes that are on either side, so just like here, then how do you determine if your stem goes up or down? Generally, whatever note is the furthest from the middle line is what you're going to go with. So, like here, this G is further away from the B than the C is, so we're going to go with the G, so stem up. Here, the E is further away from the middle line than the A is, so we'll go stems down. Okay, so just like I showed it here, this is wrong because the stem goes up, whereas the E is further from the line than the A is, so we would go with the E, which is stem down. Sorry if that was confusing. We've got things that are beamed incorrectly, and what it is we want to beam within each beat. Okay, so for instance, I'm going to give you this one. So this is correct. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We'd put a bar line there. And then this 16th rest starts count 1. You notice how they put the E there and then they beamed the and a 1 all the way to the E of 2 together. This looks like a beat. This looks like that's a down, like that's a beat number, like a 1 or a 2 or something like that. So when you read it, it looks really confusing to the musician. So what we'd want to do is we would want to break that up. So we would say, that's count 1, E, and So we don't want to beam across here. So we'll break that and we'll actually beam these three together. And then there is no beams here. We'll leave that as a gap. And then beam 2, E, and together. So this will look like those two sixteenths will be beamed together, but we'll add this beam across here to show that eighth note. So it'll look like this one. Okay. So you want to go through and you want to mark where those beats are. So I suggest that you go through and you mark, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and is in there. 3, and that's an eighth note, a dotted eighth note. So it'd have E and. So that's 4 E and. So this is actually correct. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I would go through and mark those numbers across there so that you can see what that subdivision is, and then you can change the beamings so that they aren't beaming across beats. Okay, because we want it to look as neat and easy for the musician to read. So this is just rewriting all of this up here, but in a way that you can read it better. You don't have to recopy the text, just the music. But I will say this. Um, the way this is written here is actually really common to see in vocal music where they don't use beams. they use flags to go with their words. So vocally, vocal music wise, this is actually pretty accurate. But we want to rewrite it in the way that an instrumentalist would read it. Okay, so that we can get used to that and how it works. By the way, in your book, anacrusis is a fancy term to say pickup note. And remember, I think it was, we were just about to get to that when class ended. So, anacrusis pickup note. So, it is where your first measure doesn't have all the beats necessary. So, it's adding just the beats that it needs to get to one. So, this is a quarter note pickup or a quarter note anacrusis. Okay, but it has to take that time from somewhere, so it generally takes the time from the end of the song. So your last measure would be missing the beats that it added at the first measure. Okay, and when I say first measure, it's actually the measure before the first measure because we don't count the anacrusis measure or the pickup measure as a measure. Measure one starts after the first bar line. So they robbed a quarter note, so they had to take it from here. Okay, so in our example here, they robbed a 16th note. So by the end, down here, we can only have 1 3/4 beats. Okay, so we cannot have a full 2 beats. We have to take a 16th note off to make that work. Another example of beaming. Okay, so um, practice your beaming, fix it, see how it's incorrect here. Okay, and they showed the correct one there, so you'd start over again. 2 E and that'd be 3 beamed with this. These two are beamed together. 4 and. Okay, this is practice of saying I've got a tied note. How could I rewrite that? So like this. So we're going to combine this note with that note. So we'll add a dot to make that work. 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 It's not always going to be a dot, by the way. This one is, though. Dot. Okay. We're going to stop there because I don't want to get into syncopation on this lesson. Thank you, guys. So do the first in workbook 2, 2.1, all of it. All of that. 2.2, all of that. All of that. 2.3, all of that. All of that. Oh, nope, sorry, not all of that. Stop here. Okay, so stop when you see syncopation. Okay. If you guys have any questions, shoot me a message and I will do my best to help you out. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful snow day.